Hey guys, what's going on? On this episode of Ecomm Coffee, we're going to be talking about audiences you need to have set up in your ad account right now. Welcome back to another episode of Ecomm Coffee. We have Terrell in office, in studio right now, and I can't help but smile because he's all the way out from Arizona. So we're going to be talking about some really cool stuff in person for the first time. Get to see him on camera. Typically, we're remote, and he's over in Arizona, and I'm over here just all alone on the East Coast in Rhode Island, and you know that's how it's been going. But now we have him here in office.
Super excited to be here. It's a really nice setup here, and I think these cameras will make me look even better. So,
well, you make
thanks
it
for
easy.
having me.
You make it easy, Terrell.
And we got coffee this episode. So.
That's right. Yeah. So for the first time, we have coffee. I have a refresher because I had a coffee, but I gave it to my lovely girlfriend, who I got it for specifically. I didn't get it for myself, and then Terrell gave it away to her, thinking I got it for her. So when I asked
here's a free
for
coffee.
it,
Take it.
That didn't happen. But I'm stuck with a refresher, so hopefully I don't get too much crap for having this.
That's all right.
This drink here. That's
and it's
not really
pink,
coffee.
so
right.
Whatever you need, man.
Right. So, all right, cool. So today we're going to be talking about audiences, right? So a lot of people have a misconception about audiences. They have this idea that audiences are something that you go and you start a Facebook ad and you go and look after a bunch of interests. And, you know, let's say we are in the flower space. You have a flower shop and you think, okay, let me go look for people who are interested in flowers and stuff like that. There's a misconception there because although that might be a good place to potentially start, it's a certain type of audience, and there are multiple types of audiences that have much bigger propensity to buy at each level that we're going to go into in this episode. So to just kind of kick things off here, I'm going to basically get into interests, which is what I was just mentioning. However, we're going to talk about narrowing interests, and Terrell will kind of expand on these a little bit. So just to kind of kick things off, interest-based targeting, the most standard style of targeting that most people get into and start to build ads on. You know, you create an ad, you select your objective, you know, you select your region, United States or wherever your region is, and then you scroll down in Ads Manager and you see this audiences section and you kind of start there. And a lot of people are going to start with cold interests. Well, a quick tip here, and what I want to talk about is narrowing those interests. Underneath the actual initial interest audience search category, there's an exclude or narrow by. And those are very, very powerful buttons. And you can actually take a topic and then narrow to people inside of that topic. So basically, you're telling Facebook that I want people that are interested in this, but they also have to have interest in this other thing. And I'm going to let Terrell talk about Terrell talk a little bit about. Don't call him Terrell, dear God.
I don't mind.
Soul dies a little bit.
T is fine.
Yeah. So I'm going to let Terrell talk a little bit about some things he's done in the past and just how important that narrowing can be, especially when you're looking at cold audiences. And we'll talk a little bit about lookalikes and drilling into lookalikes later. So now we're just tell me a little bit about cold audience narrowing.
So what you can do with the, you know, what Matt was talking about there, you know, and what we're going to want to get into is, you know, really taking those interest base and narrowing it down to somebody who you think is going to purchase, simply using the interest base. So what we can do is we can take, you know, for a flower shop, it could also be, you know, people who are, you know, giving gifts or, you know, just even if you're just saying a flower base. Okay, so let's just go with people who are interested in flowers, which is kind of a crazy interest group because, like, who's just going to be interested in flowers? Usually it's like a gift-giving reason. Yeah. But let's just say that's what we're starting with. So what you do then is you can take people that are interested in flowers and you say, okay, I also want to target people who are engaged shoppers because that's another place that's targetable within Facebook. You can also do online purchasers. So you can go, you know, engage shoppers, online purchasers with a flower base, and you just keep on going down until you get that audience you're looking for. Another one that I would do if I was in that is maybe go with a there's a high net worth percent zip code that you can go into to make sure that if you have a higher purchase product or something that, might take a little bit more money to buy, you need somebody who has disposable income. So you can do a high net worth targeting within that. And what that does is, so they removed the ability to target based on demographics, but what they have now included is zip code net worth targeting. So it takes zip codes that have, higher priced homes, stuff like that, that's public. And so then you can target those people in those zip codes with that interest base instead of having to figure that out yourself. So you're really going down and niching within every interest until you have an audience size that you're happy with that you can run to. And so you can do that within really any type of company that you're going to be running to find those people who align in every interest area that you're going after.
That is so cool. So this is something that a lot of people don't think about, and it's still a lot of times when I think about it, it's even just like the power of it is so cool because it's not the first thing you think about. When I think interest, if I'm a flower shop, when I think interest, I think, okay, let's see, I'll go for people that are narrowed by. I'll go for my first interest will be people who like flowers, and then I'll narrow by people that are maybe into, certain stores that resonate with flowers and things like that. But what you're saying is instead of narrowing by another interest like that, take a propensity to purchase online, which is an interest that you wouldn't think of like right out of the gate, and narrow by that because it's going to find a more a stronger potential purchaser, someone that's going to be more interested in your product, correct?
Correct, yeah. And, the other one that, I know this is talking about a flower shop, and the chances that a flower shop is listening to this might be slim. But
we'll flip the game, dude.
Yeah. If this is a flower shop company listening.
Let's flip the game. What's the company? Let's do a new company.
So I still like the flower shop. Yeah, I think it's good.
Oh, so you like the flower shop?
I do. Because, this is the interest base that I'm going to talk about here, is typically only used in e-com companies at a bottom of funnel level, but is upcoming birthday, or upcoming anniversary. This is a targeting that with a flower shop you could do at the top of funnel because you're hitting people that have an event coming up that they should buy flowers for. Because you can do a friend of you can do a friend who has a birthday upcoming as well. So you can target and you could say, hey, do you have a friend? Is your wife have a birthday? You have an anniversary coming up. You can do any of that targeting and let them know, hey, you can come and purchase a flower here, and still do a drill in within those upcoming birthdays. So you could do a propensity to purchase within that audience as well. So that could be a great, base level to go with as well. And that one is also one that is going to be evergreen for you because it's going to be constantly uploading new audience based on people's birthday or anniversaries that are coming up.
Perfect. Yeah. And that's great. And I think that especially in e-commerce, that interest of like likelihood to purchase or interested in online purchasing is clutch. What have you seen that actually work with? As far as results, like differences. And stuff like that.
Really, it's across the board. Anytime doing an audience that I'm wanting them to purchase something, which is almost every single one, and I'm doing it, I'll use that as a drill in, and you'll see a immediate 10 to 20% lift by just saying online purchasers as a drill in, because the online purchase audience is pretty big. So you're not narrowing it by a lot. Usually you're going to take a 1.2 million audience down to 800,000, but you're automatically excluding 400,000 people who don't have a propensity to purchase online. So it's a nice first step drill in when you have a good base audience that you're going off of.
Perfect. Love it. And before we move on to the next category, let's say I'm an e-commerce shop that sells flowers online. What is the audience size I need to go for? What should I build my audience to? 500,000, 10,000, 20,000? I'm a national brand. I'm selling my flowers online. I'm an e-commerce shop. If I'm narrowing, what size am I looking for with my audience?
Yeah, it's a good question, and something that you hear from a lot of people just wanting to get that right. And it's really different. some of it depends on your spend, how much you're spending, how much you're looking to spend over time, because you would like to have an audience that you can have run for a good amount of time, so you're not having to sit there and change and do new ads every other day. So you want to have an audience that is, at least 100,000 people in it, so that it has some time to run. But if you're not doing a big spend and you're not worried about, hey, I want to spend hundreds of dollars a day, you could say, okay, you know what, let's just take that down to 50,000, because I'm going to get really niched in this audience, and I'm going to put something in front of them that they're going to take immediate action on, and I'm only going to spend $5 a day. That's something that could last a couple of weeks. So a lot of it kind of depends on your goals, but for a just across the board recommendation, I would say 100,000 plus. And if you really want something to run for a good amount of time, you're then talking 500,000 to $1 million.
Gotcha. Perfect. That's good information, because that's a question that I feel like we get asked a lot, and it's a question that I even when I'm going in, occasionally setting up ads and stuff like that. It's like, what's the sweet spot here? And really, the desired frequency in daily dollar spend has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, and it also, like, you're drilling in, and if you're wanting to get some testing done, because we're still talking about like top of the funnel here, is just keep drilling in until you get down to even if you get down to 10,000, but you're really strong, you feel really strongly about that specific niche that you're going to be advertising to, and you have a piece of content that you're going to put in front of that specific group of people, go ahead and run it. Like, hey, see what happens. And what you can do is there's an option on there that you can select and tell Facebook, hey, go ahead and expand beyond this audience if you find people who are going to take the exact same action that I want these people to do. And Facebook will expand your audience slowly beyond what you're spending. So it's something you can do with that as well.
Perfect. Okay, so interest-based audiences. That's the first group of audiences here. And again, that's what most people, they hit the ads manager for the first time, and that's where they start, is with interest-based. They set up their ad. But custom audiences are hands down the most powerful sets of audiences that if you don't have the groupings that we're going to talk about in just a second currently in place, you are missing out on some incredible low-hanging fruit, especially for your e-commerce business. If you're maybe even in the if you've built a small brand within the drop shipping space too, because a lot of drop shippers now are focusing a lot on creating niche brands versus just putting 100 things on their store. So they're actually trying to really brand themselves, and being able to retarget in this manner with a lot of these custom audiences. We're just setting up these custom audiences in general is going to be huge. So the first one I want to talk about, and we're going to talk about the lookalike portion of this in just a little bit, but I want to just briefly touch on purchaser lists. So you're a store, you're in Shopify or on an Excel spreadsheet, wherever you keep it, you have a list of orders that has email addresses on it. Terrell, what's the power in that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely where people are going to be able to really get a much better top of funnel audience. So what you're doing here is you're uploading a list of your purchasers. Let's just say you have 1,000 email addresses, and you're uploading those into Facebook. You're then having Facebook go and find those people. However many of them exist on Facebook that match those email address and names that you uploaded. Maybe it finds 500 of them. So what it's going to do is you're then going to be able to target those people as purchasers with something specific. You could have a sale that you just want to target previous purchasers or people who've actually bought something from you, and hit them with some type of ad. Maybe it's a sale, whatever you want to do there. But the next thing that we're going to talk about here is creating a lookalike of those purchasers. So what Facebook will do is they'll take those 500 people that they found from the email list, and they're going to find, with a 1% lookalike within the United States, they're going to find 1.2 million people who match those 500 people based on those 500 people's interest base, their demographics, what they, like where they're at, what their propensity is to be interested in. and then matches them up and then creates an audience for you to start with. So it really gets new customers, because that's everybody's goal, right? Is just find new customers for your product. And so it finds people that would be interested in purchasing your product. So it's extremely powerful to be able to help find those groups of people that you're not already finding, and it's a great way to get those people without doing just interest-based targeting on your own.
Gotcha. Perfect. Now, can you ever use the purchaser list just by itself? Can you use that as an audience, let's say post-purchase, for maybe either reselling or anything like that? Or is it really just a seed for your lookalike?
Yeah, I mean, there are times where you'll target that purchaser list. A lot of times when it's, when you need some type of re-engagement, if hey, they haven't, you could exclude like people who've purchased in the last 30 days and target that list so that you're, reaching people who haven't purchased recently, and you want to re-engage them and get them to come back and buy something. So you could do something like that with that purchaser list. But for the most part, it's used to really seed your lookalike interests.
Gotcha. Perfect.
And, so going back to what we were talking about of the drill-ins.
Bring it home.
You can take, so this is where it gets really good, is you can then take that 1% lookalike that you just created and use the same drill-in strategy that we talked about earlier. So you can take that 1% lookalike and put on top of it, or put the drill-in, narrow the audience, and say online engaged shoppers. So then it's dumping that from 1.2 million down to 800,000. And then you can also layer something else onto there and something else onto there, to where you're saying, okay, you found 1% lookalike in the United States, 1.2 million people that are exactly like that. Well, I want them to be even deeper engaged, and say, okay, now I only want them who are into flowers or within that have an upcoming birthday, and then hit them with that.
Yeah.
So you could do a lot of different things with the drill in, using the 1% lookalike at the top of the level, and then narrow into that. And I've seen incredible results.
Perfect. And just again to clarify, if you're in the e-commerce space and you're watching this right now, hands down, the most important piece of information that we've disseminated to our clients, that's a real mind-blowing thing, is not only can you take interests and narrow by interest, which a lot of people know how to do, you can take a wrapper of a lookalike audience, which is what Terrell was just talking about, and drill into that. That is single-handedly one of the most powerful targeting tools that so few people utilize today. So please, 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 if there's one thing you take away from this, take a list of your purchasers. Has to be 100 people or more, correct?
Yeah, it needs to. I would typically
the more
say,
the better.
Yeah, the more the better. And if you're, that's the other thing, is if you're lacking emails to upload, you can do those lookalikes off of other things. So you can do a custom audience of your Facebook engagers, of your Instagram engagers, and you can do a lookalike off of those. You could do a lookalike off of video views. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different lookalikes you can do. The best possible one is purchasers, but just go down the line from there. Your most engaged customers, your video views, anything will at least get you started until you get that purchaser list.
Right. And the psychology behind creating a lookalike audience off of a video view or an add to cart or something like that is that we're just walking back the deepest, most committed step. So someone that purchases your product, that's someone we really want a lookalike audience off of. But if we don't have that, let's walk the to the tune of at least 100, preferably in the thousands. If we don't have that yet, then we can walk that back to add to carts. And if we don't have that yet, then we can maybe walk that back to view contents, although that's not, we wouldn't necessarily recommend that because it's a weaker seed. But if you're in that position, then maybe try running a video where you can get 3,000 people to watch it all the way through, maybe $200, $100 ad spend total if it's a really relevant piece of content, and lookalike audience off of that. We're just walking back the level of commitment there. So again, if the biggest piece of advice we could give right now from this episode is use a lookalike and narrow into interests. We call it lookalike drill-ins, and you will see a massive difference in engagement and driving traffic, your view content costs, and all of that stuff. So huge piece of advice there. I hope everyone takes advantage of that. Just to take a quick side note here, when we're talking about custom audiences, what we're talking about is this. When you first set up an ad in Ads Manager, you're basically going to go to create. It's going to ask you your objective. Then it's going to you're going to get into the ad set level and start selecting things like your cold interests and stuff like that. When we're creating a custom audience, instead of being in Ads Manager, we want to click on the hamburger menu up the top left and explode out to see the audiences section, not audience insights, but audiences. And from there, we can create. As soon as you hit that create drop down, you'll see saved, lookalike, and custom. So we're talking about custom audiences right now specifically. So that's lookalike and lookalike interest drill-ins. Getting into custom audiences even further here, after purchaser lists, we're going to talk about engagement audiences. This is an incredibly powerful middle of funnel strategy here. So engagement audiences are everything from people that watched a video to people that sent you a direct message on Instagram. That's a specific audience you can pull out to just newsfeed Instagram engagers or Instagram business page engagers, Facebook engagers, website engagers. So I'm going to let Terrell talk a little bit about the most potent engagement audiences, what you should set up right out of the gate. And again, just to clarify, go to your audiences tab. There's a create option and then custom, and you'll get a big list of things that you can create from. So go ahead, Terrell.
Yeah, absolutely. So the ones that you're going to want to make sure you start with and get right off the bat is that you're going to want to create an audience of 10-second video views, and you're going to have to select the actual video. So this is one that you're going to have to constantly create every time you have a new video that you're getting up. And so you'll have to make sure that you're including new videos. I usually do these, weekly is good to make sure you have a good look back on them. And then you want to create a Facebook engagers audience, Instagram engagers audience, website visits audience, add to cart audience, and purchase audience. So within all of these audiences, you want to do different day look backs because it's going to ask you, okay, how far back do you want me to look for the purchasers? The maximum amount for a pixel conversion is 180 days.
Now, hold on, Terrell. You mean to tell me that we just talked about purchaser lists, but you can also create a dynamic audience around purchasers? And just for everyone watching, there's two main types of audiences, dynamic and static. A purchaser list that you take a spreadsheet and upload would be a static audience. No one else enters it or exits it. A dynamic audience would be something like Terrell's talking about, where you can create a look back. People that added to cart in the last 3 days. People are always going to be coming in and out of that. So you mean to tell me that you can also create a purchaser audience that's dynamic?
Absolutely, yep. And you can also, going back to our previous note, was you can create lookalikes off of everything we're talking about here. So you can also do a dynamic lookalike audience that's going to be off of your past 30 rolling day people. So those can also adjust and change based on the time that goes by. So it's super powerful to create these dynamic ones. And so what based on kind of your ad spend, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a 1 day, a 7 day, a 14 day, a 30 day, a 60 day, a 90 day, and a 180 day. So that's a lot of different audiences for each one of these. But what it does is it allows you to market to people based on how long ago they have engaged or watched a video or visited your site, and hit them with that, because you're the best one to sell to is somebody who engaged with your stuff within the last 24 hours. Mm-hmm. But then the person who engaged within the last 3 days is going to be better than the person that engaged 7 days, 14, and all the way out. So you want to really set those up to where you can use your language to target those people properly, because you're going to talk to the person who looked at your stuff yesterday differently than you're going to talk to the person that looked at it 3 months ago and still hasn't purchased. So there's a lot of different language you can use to really target them, to get them to do what it is you want them to do. Because the 180-day person, you might only want to get them to just come back to the site and visit it and just do something. Or, hey, just watch some more pieces of our video content, and maybe that's going to be the last thing you needed to see to actually come and do something. So you're going to have different goals for each level of that. And what you can do is you have each of those created because you can then exclude. So what you can do is you can run an ad to where you're targeting the 180-day, let's say, engagers. Okay, so you're targeting people who have engaged with your content within the last 180 days. But I'm going to exclude the people who did engage within the last 30 days. So that way I'm only targeting people who have engaged 31 to 180 days ago but have not in the last 30. So then you're re-engaging those people to come back and do something. And so you can do that at every level. You could do a 3-day engager excluding the last 24 hours so that you're hitting people with pieces of content, but also not hitting the people that you're hitting with the immediate content. So, there's a lot you can do within that. So just making sure that you're keeping an eye on each stage of that funnel to those people so that every level is being hit somewhere. Because you want to make sure that you're hitting those 180-day, but the bottom of funnel is going to be really hitting those, past 7 days.
Gotcha. Perfect. So that's pretty much in a nutshell some of the engagement audiences that we can hit. And they're extremely powerful, from website visitors to website actions to video viewers, Instagram and Facebook engagers, people that engage with the post or like the page. Engagement audiences are incredible middle of funnel and high converting, depending on, like Terrell was talking about, given the window look back day that you use. So we've talked about a ton of stuff. Some of it might seem super complex. So Terrell, I'm going to ask you, you have 5 audiences to create. That's it. Only 5. This is your test. What are the 5 audiences that you set up to be most potent for your small e-commerce business? You're doing between $150,000 and $750,000 a year right now, and you have 1,500 page likes, and there's about 480 purchasers of your product so far.
Yeah, so if we're just getting started on Facebook ads, the first audience you're going to do is the custom audience of purchasers.
So you're going to export your custom. Are you talking about the dynamic, or the export your list and do a purchaser?
Yeah, export the list and do a purchaser list.
So that's one.
Yep. Create one lookalike off of that.
Got it.
So is that 2 then?
I'll give you the 1 because the purchaser list is just the upload. So our first audience is upload the purchaser list and then create a lookalike audience off of that purchaser list. Perfect. So that's 1.
Okay. So then the next one is going to be I want a 7-day engager audience. And we're going to lump in it. Now, this is technically, when you build it, it's 2 different audiences because you have to do a Facebook engager and an Instagram engager. So it's technically 2, but a lot of times I'm lumping those in when you're doing something.
Got it. So all Facebook engagers, all Instagram engagers. Technically 2 different audiences, but I'm going to let Terrell get away with that one. We'll say that's the second audience.
So that's a 7-day look back on that one.
Okay, got it. 7-day look back.
And then I'm going to do that same one with a 3-day look back.
Got it.
And then I'm going to do a view content. So this is instead of saying view content, we'll just do pixel traffic.
Got it.
Because I just want anybody who's gone to the site for anything, and I want a 14-day look back on that.
14-day look back on view content. Okay.
And then I would want all video views past 30 days.
All video views past 30 days. Perfect. So those are the 5, and to create all of those, outside of uploading the purchaser list, which we talked about earlier, to do all of those, simply go to the audiences section in Business Manager or Ads. When you're in Ads Manager, explode out the hamburger menu, go to audiences. You can create all of those right in the audiences tab.
Yeah, and a lot of it is also, that answer for those 5 questions the way that'll change is based on budget. Okay, so if you're a really limited budget, then I just take those numbers way down, right? So all of a sudden the 30-day look back is really a 7-day look back, and the 14-day look back is a 3-day look back.
Got it.
You know, same thing with like the pixel traffic, because then it's like, hey, I only want to hit the lowest hanging fruit, because your spend won't get through all 30 days of those people. Then I just want to go for those people who, you know, have done something super recent and try to sell to them. Because, you know, if you do your 3-day engager is always going to be ready to purchase more than your 14-day. But if you have enough money to spend through that 14-day audience, it's better than not hitting anybody past the 3-day. So it just some of it is going to depend on your ad spend. And so if you have a really low ad spend, then make sure you're just hitting those super recent people. And as you see success there, start to scale it up, and then you're going to have to increase your audience size. So you'll just go a little bit further back on the look back.
Gotcha. In the filmmaking world, there is this mantra that you aren't to break your camera rules. And there's a rule called the rule of 180. And that rule basically states that in every shoot, if we're doing these two over the camera, for everyone listening right now, we have a video podcast and we're filming this. Basically, the rule states that you just can't break a 180 line. And it doesn't matter if you know what that means. All that is just to say that that's a rule that so many of the most prolific filmmakers and directors of photography have destroyed. They break it all the time. And the way I want to tie that in is by saying this. All of the rules that we're presenting to you, the advice we're giving you right now, the biggest thing is get in and break them. If you want to create a 30-day on low budget and maybe spend there, try it, test it. Everything should be tested. We're giving you guidelines here. We're giving you, if you don't know, if anything that you're doing, going in and set these up, but ultimately test everything, because that is where we're going to see the most amount of results. So I think that just about does it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and hopefully you have some actionable content here that you can really dive into. And until next time, we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
We've been using executing across